LaToya Jackson once said, "It doesn't matter how rich or poor a person is, what gender or social class, or how much fame or education she possesses. Verbal, mental, and physical abuse can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter what a woman's ethnicity is, because the only distinguishing color of abuse is black and blue." Intimate partner violence or domestic abuse affects millions of people. There are literally hundreds of statistics that I could throw your way. But the one that I want you to focus on most for today's video is that on average, it takes 7 times for a victim of domestic abuse to leave their abuser for good. Because now, the question that I want you to ask yourself is, what happens when a victim does finally leave, finally does press charges for the abuse, and it's still not enough to keep them safe? 22-year-old Lauren Johanson was brutally murdered by her abusive ex-boyfriend on July 2nd, 2024. Legally, she should have been protected. However, due to major human errors that were made within the Tennessee judicial system, her abuser was let out and, for lack of a better term, basically allowed to hunt her down and finish the job that he started. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Criminally Focused. My name is Desiree, and whether you're new to my channel or you're a returning OG, I truly appreciate you clicking on this video, and I hope you'll stay a while. So, before we get into today's video, I do want a quick apology. I do want to make a quick apology. I know that this video has taken a lot longer than normal to be released to you guys, and I'm really sorry about that. Typically, the reason that my videos take so long is because I have a full-time job. I'm an office manager for a construction company, and I'm also a single mom. But this time, I was a little clumsy and I broke my phone, and of course, I record my videos with my phone right now, so I had to wait until I got a new one. Now that we have all that out of the way, let's get into today's story. Today's story is a lot. There's a lot that I want to talk to you about, and then there's probably going to be a lot of emotions that come from it, from myself and from you. So I just want to apologize in advance. I might get a little heated at times. But when I heard Lauren's story, I knew pretty much immediately that we were going to talk about it. Lauren and her family deserve justice. Someone should take responsibility for the mistakes that were made, and some major changes need to be made in the criminal justice system. Not like that's really a surprise, but this story will blow your mind. Mistakes like the ones that were made in Lauren Johanson's case should never have been allowed to happen. But I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself, Getting a little pissed already. But let me tell you Lauren's story. So then at the end of the video, you can make up your own mind. So grab whatever you're drinking or smoking, and let's get right into it.
There's no way we should be talking about Lauren Johanson in the past tense today.
A 22-year-old who was found brutally beaten to death on July 3rd.
The failure in our criminal justice system led to her brutal killing.
The district attorney's office here in Nashville. He did not report to that GPS monitoring company, and he has not been heard from, so I want to make sure that Lauren is safe.
You basically let an animal out of a cage. It's like letting a tiger out of a cage on a piece of meat. It's going to go right towards and start eating. And, the jail let this animal out.
All right, so let's talk about Miss Lauren Porter Johanson. Lauren was born on October 30th, 2001 in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Growing up, both of her parents worked in the medical field. Her mom was a nurse and her dad is an orthopedic surgeon. So it's not very surprising to me anyways that she would grow up and also, want to work in medicine. Lauren was the oldest of her siblings. She had a younger sister and 2 younger brothers. According to her family, her younger siblings were each born premature, and so that left them with, some type of disability. So because Lauren's parents worked long hours, Lauren had no problem, stepping up and helping with her siblings. I read that this, created a super close bond between them. And it makes sense if she was there helping with their homework or, I don't know what exactly she did, but I can imagine that they really looked up to their sister. And Lauren was absolutely beautiful, but she was also incredibly smart and kind. Her family actually said she brought a smile to everyone that she was around, and basically anyone that she ever met loved her instantly. Growing up, Lauren loved being outside and doing activities like horseback riding. She spent a lot of her free time actually volunteering at local animal shelters. Something to note about Lauren is that she apparently loved animals. When she wasn't volunteering, she was hanging out with her own animals. I guess she had a dog named Bentley Joe, a cat named Marley, and even a rescue horse named Coco. Her parents actually said that if Coco, her rescue horse, had fit into Lauren's Jeep, that Lauren would have brought Coco along with her everywhere she went as well. I thought that was really cute. After high school graduation, Lauren went on to pursue a degree at the University of Southern Mississippi in nursing. Surprise, surprise. So she was all set to graduate. Super excited. She was going to graduate next year. And just really looking forward to her future as a nurse practitioner. And I think after going over everything that we just went over about how Lauren was kind, smart, dependable, helpful, in my opinion, she would have made a wonderful nurse. But sadly, her dreams were cut short by a psychotic ex-boyfriend that family had been trying to get her away from for years. Lauren and 23-year-old Bryson Rivers began dating in high school and dated for nearly 5 years. Bryson was a football star and interested in either joining the Marines or the Air Force, but their relationship was on and off again. Kind of like a roller coaster. It had its highs and it had its lows, but it was incredibly toxic. Lauren's father actually said in interviews that he knew instantly when he met Bryson that he was a total psychopath. Her family has said that they tried for years to separate the two. And although they were successful multiple times, Bryson always found a way to kind of like weasel his way back in. And although Lauren was murdered in Mississippi in July, the story that I'm going to tell you today actually begins months earlier, and it starts in Tennessee. On December 11th, 2023, Lauren and Bryson took a trip to Germantown, Tennessee, which, looking at a map, it seems to be about 3 to 4 hours from Nashville. And while they're at the bar, Bryson allegedly saw Lauren talking to another guy. And keep in mind that we weren't there, so we don't know. But I'm guessing that Lauren probably just casually said something to a dude next to her. I doubt that she had any kind of nefarious intentions behind it. But regardless, the two left the bar and began arguing. At some point in the argument, Lauren called her family and they said that she sounded hysterical. Like she was literally screaming for her life. Can you imagine getting that call as a parent? Ugh. So of course, her family called 911 and the police responded to the scene. I guess when they arrived, the Metro Nashville Police Department said that they could hear Lauren inside the car screaming, trying to get out. When Lauren was finally able to get out of the car, the police could instantly tell that she had been badly assaulted. And just a heads up, I do want to show a video interview from WSM4 Nashville, which is like a local news station out there. And they do show photos of Lauren after she was assaulted. So I'm just putting up a trigger warning. If it is too hard to listen to, but you do want to continue hearing this story, I am going to put up this little symbol. That way you know that the trigger warning is still in effect. Once the symbol goes away, you are free to press play.
It's deeply unsettling. Bryson Rivers and Lauren Johanson were on a trip to Nashville last December when they got into a brutal fight. Rivers was arrested. He was put in a Davidson County jail for the last 7 months.
Our Marissa Sue got to see and hear exactly, Marissa, what led up to that point.
Lydia, we got to hear an audio recording Johansen took on her phone of the fight. We saw Metro Police body camera video when officers came across Rivers and Johansen in the car, and we listened to a jail call Rivers made to her weeks after. We do want to warn you, what you will see is graphic, and while we could only inspect documents and recordings in the criminal court clerk's office today, the photos you will see are what Johansen's dad sent me. Now, this is 22-year-old Lauren Johanson. She was a beautiful young woman studying to be a nurse, and this is what happened to her after she was pulled from a fight inside a car with Bryson Rivers. Her left eye was swollen shut, lips puffed up, and there was a gash coming from the side of her head that spilled blood across the car. Johansen's legs and arms were also all bruised up. In Johansen's audio recording, her mouth was covered and she was gasping for air. You can then hear Rivers say sentences like, "If you move from the spot you're in, I swear to God, you ain't waking up. No one is going to find you, babe. And all I have to do is drive you 15 minutes outward and drop you off in the woods, and no one will ever see you again."
So as you can see from these photos, Lauren had 2 black eyes and they both look almost swollen shut. She also had cuts on her head and face and bruising all over her body. She seriously looked unrecognizable. And when officers began talking to Bryson, they noticed that he was also covered in blood. However, he didn't have any injuries, so obviously it wasn't his blood that was all over him. According to the officers, when they searched the car, they found blood splatter everywhere. And I guess in the floorboards of his car, they found a pistol that was soaked in blood. He was then arrested and charged with 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping, 1 count of aggravated stalking, and 1 count of coercion of a witness. According to her father, if convicted, Bryson could have spent the rest of his life behind bars. After the assault, Lauren was, hospitalized, and her father picked her up from the hospital when she was released. However, he had to stay with her for the next week because she was injured so severely that she needed help taking care of herself. On December 18th, Bryson's preliminary hearing was held. And during the hearing, Lauren's father literally begged the judge to keep Bryson locked up. He told the judge that if Bryson got released, he was afraid that he would kill his daughter. But still, the judge allowed Bryson to have bail and set his bond at $251,000. The judge promised that if Bryson were to pay this bond and get released before trial, Lauren's family would know about it immediately. Well, spoiler alert, that didn't happen. Okay, so let's take a break quick from Lauren's story and talk more about domestic abuse. This is something I've tried to cover on my channel to help bring awareness because I think that's important. However, I also think it's important to talk about the stigma and judgment that comes with being a victim. People who have never experienced it seem to kind of wonder why the victims stay with their abusers for as long as they do. Well, remember that statistic that I told you at the beginning of the video. On average, it takes 7 times for a victim to leave their abuser for good. And there's many reasons for that, including, the obvious. People stay with their abusers because of fear of retaliation, whether that's physically or emotionally, and also just fear of the unknown. Leaving a romantic partner who is abusive is seriously one of the most dangerous times for a victim of domestic abuse. And, within intimate partner violence, there is a cycle where the abuser has the episode and hurts the victim leaves, and the abuser apologizes, and the victim returns. But it's really not that simple in real life. There can be many reasons why a victim returns to their abuser, and because it's commonly underreported, It's commonly misunderstood. So in this video and any other videos that you might watch of mine about domestic abuse, I ask that you be empathetic in your comments. Only the victim can really understand why they stay as long as they do. Victims need support, encouragement, and understanding. I do want victims to feel comfortable and safe in this community. So please watch your comments and be kind. But I wanted to mention all of that because unfortunately, while in prison, Lauren and Bryson began talking again. You know, abusers are master manipulators. So it really shouldn't surprise us that Bryson somehow had managed to weasel his way back in again. I guess Lauren and him talked a lot, and officials said that their conversations were really lovey-dovey. And that's so sad. She was so beautiful and deserved so much better than him. But back to the timeline. On March 13th, 2024, Bryson requested that his bond be lowered. And on April 3rd, for some unknown reason, despite having evidence and testimony from the officers that were on the scene, and this evidence included that blood-soaked pistol, as well as those officers' body camera footage that showed Lauren brutally beaten, the judge still ended up lowering his bond. On April 3rd, 2024, the judge approved Bryson's request and lowered his bond to $150,000. And, you know, under this new bond, the judge did make certain stipulations that Bryson would be required to follow if he were to pay his bond and be released before trial. And these stipulations included to have no contact with Lauren, and he had remained living in Davidson County, Tennessee, which is where the crime occurred. And then he also had to wear an ankle monitor that had a GPS tracking device that tracked his every move. And the final stipulation was that Bryson could only be released from jail between the hours of 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. And this was due to the fact that he, had to get it set up with that ankle monitor with a certain company. And that company was only open between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. This company was called Tracking Solutions. Oh, and I guess just in case you don't know what a bond is, from my understanding, a bond is a way for courts to allow defendants to be out of jail, until their trial starts. They use it basically as a guarantee that the defendant's going to return to court. Many times in order to pay this bond, people have to hire what's called a bail's bondsman. And the defendant, if they have a bondsman, if they don't follow court orders or show up to court, they would be immediately taken back into custody and they'd lose that portion of the money that they gave to the bondsman. But Bryson, he was facing some serious time in prison for his assault. So he needed to find a bail's bonds company that would be willing to risk the consequences if he were to flee. And unfortunately, he seemed to find the perfect company to do so. Bryson ended up choosing Brookes Bail's Bond, which is a company located in Nashville and owned by Brooke Carlin. Brooke is a licensed bail bond agent, and she's also, according to her website, a certified transformational life coach. Their mission is to get you out of jail and keep you out of jail, and that they help their clients make lasting life changes by providing them with tools for their future. She is a beautiful lady, so there's no shade, but some of these photos just kind of make me cringe. And something that I did find kind of entertaining for some reason were the rap videos posted on her company's website. And, I get it. She lives in Nashville. They call it the Music City there, but still, I guess I wasn't expecting to see a rapping bondsman. On June 4th, Bryson's probation officer sent a copy of the judge's orders with the stipulations over to Tracking Solutions so they could get ready for Bryson's release. His attorney also sent documents to the court that allegedly provided the address that Bryson would be staying at while he was on probation and had that ankle monitor on. Because remember, he was stuck in Davidson County. On June 24th, Bryson was released from jail at 4:05 p.m., which, if you remember, the court stipulation said he had to be released between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. So being released at 4:05 p.m., that is a direct violation of the court order. So now that it was after 4 p.m., Bryson couldn't report to Tracking Solutions to get his GPS monitor. So what happened? Why was he allowed to even leave the jail in the first place after 4 p.m., despite what the judge had stipulated? Well, because the clerk of court never sent in those stipulations to the sheriff's department. So he sent the court order in, the first page of it. The second page, he did not. This is the page that outlined all of the rules that the judge had put in place. So, because this page was accidentally lost and was argumentatively one of the most important pieces of the court order, the necessary people that were supposed to get the information didn't. Meaning that the sheriff's department wasn't even aware that he was supposed to be released prior to 4. Someone who was aware, though, allegedly, was his bail company. But did they do their job at least right? Allegedly, no. According to court documents, the bond company at this point was required to surrender Bryson back to the custody of Davidson County Sheriff's Office. Despite the bond company allegedly knowing what they were supposed to do, they just took him to a different GPS monitoring company, one that was owned by none other than one of their own bond agents. This company is called Freedom Monitoring, and the bond agent, her name is Nikita Burrow. And although they weren't actually able to see these court orders that, Bryson was supposed to be following because it wasn't actually uploaded into their system, they just believed Bryson and believed everything that came out of his mouth. And we know that everything that came out of Bryson's mouth was a load of shit. I'm sorry, but this part of the story makes me so angry. These bond companies had been around for years, and they should have known what they were doing, and they so obviously didn't. So at this point, Bryson told them that the court order allowed him to go back to Mississippi and live there while he awaited trial. Obviously a lie. And like I said, Freedom Monitoring didn't have this court order because they weren't supposed to be the company to give him the GPS monitoring device. These idiots just took Bryson's word for it. And they did end up fitting him with an ankle monitor that would track his location. It wasn't specifically for Davidson County like it should have been. A whole 4 days later, on June 28th, Freedom Monitoring finally received the court order. And by 5 p.m., they received an alert telling them that Bryson's ankle monitor had stopped communicating with them. And it was at this point that they called Bryson and informed him that he was in violation of his court order. They then informed him that he needed to return to get fitted for another ankle monitor. Not that he had to return to custody at the sheriff's department, but just that he needed to come by and just get another ankle monitor and then just be on his merry little way again. Why this decision was made, I have no idea.
How does someone who was wearing a GPS device meant to keep him in Nashville, Tennessee, become a murder suspect in Mississippi?
I don't know if anybody's on the same page. I think the only page you can be on is that this man is a psychopath. He belongs in jail.
One of the things that really jumps out is the amended order.
He's referring to this order from Judge Cheryl Blackburn telling all parties, including the bonding companies, that Bryson was to remain in Davidson County and have no contact with the victim.
When you've got both bonding companies here, and both bonding companies have actually signed on this order that goes over the conditions, along with the Metro employee that is supposed to be supervising this, along with the district attorney's office and the defendant, there's no way to get around it.
So the notion that we just didn't know, I mean, is that an argument that they can make?
When your signature is on this document, quite frankly, you're stopped to deny that you were completely unaware of the bonding conditions And even more troublesome is what is here at the very bottom of that page.
You can see on the bottom of the page where it says the bonding company is to surrender the defendant to the custody of the Davidson County Sheriff's Office upon notification by the monitoring company of any violations of the court order. Failure to respond to the violations in a timely manner may result in suspension of bond privileges and/or other penalties as deemed appropriate by the court.
Now that's some serious language for the bonding company. And clearly in this case, that's the problem that both of these bonding companies have, is that they were in open court and they know what is expected of them, and that didn't happen.
And at the same time, while all this was going on, the other ankle monitoring company, the one that he was supposed to go to, remember, Tracking Solutions, they contacted the district attorney's office to tell them that Bryson was in violation of his court order. I mean, I guess at least somebody finally did, but at this point, sadly, it was just too late. The DA then contacted Lauren's family to let them know that Bryson had been let out of jail. 4 days later, not immediately upon his release, like the judge had promised Lauren's dad at Bryson's preliminary hearing.
This is Bailey calling from the district attorney's office here in Nashville. Bryson Rivers was released from custody. He was supposed to report straight to a GPS company and be put on a GPS monitor, and he was not to leave Davidson County. But as soon as he was released, he did not report to that GPS monitoring company, and he has not been heard from, so I want to make sure that Lauren is safe.
Lauren's father didn't get that message until the next day. On June 29th, Bryson actually returned to Freedom Monitoring Services and got fitted for an accurate ankle monitor. Why he returned, I have no idea, because he sure as hell wasn't going to follow the rules. 2 days later, on July 1st, Lance Johansen, Lauren's father, finally heard that voicemail from the DA. You know, at this point, he called Lauren, however, he couldn't reach her. And then he received a text from her phone number that he said didn't sound anything like her. Later that day, Freedom Monitoring received yet another alert from Bryson's ankle monitor. And this time, the alert said that Bryson's monitor only had 6% battery left. So at 10:09 p.m., they called him and told him to charge it, which I guess he did. Then around midnight, Bryson called and said that he didn't have a ride for court the next morning, so he wouldn't be able to make it. On July 2nd, Lauren's father received a message around 4 a.m. from the Life 360 app saying that Lauren's phone had been disconnected. So her dad called her sister. Apparently, her sister lived with her, and he asked her if Lauren was home or if she had talked to her. And I guess when she checked, and I don't know if she just walked out of like her bedroom and into the living room or if she was just getting home, but she said that the front door was wide open and all of their animals were outside. And Lauren was nowhere to be seen. You know, knowing that she would never leave her house like that, you know, just open for the animals to roam around like that, Lauren's family called the police and they reported her as a missing person. Around 10 a.m., Freedom Monitoring noticed that the ankle monitor that was on Bryson was again getting low on battery. However, this time he wasn't responding to any of their messages. So they contacted his mom to see if she had talked to him. And apparently at this point, she had not heard from him either. Finally, his ankle monitor hit 0%, and Freedom Monitoring alerted his probation officer and his bond agent. At this point, the court officially issued a violation of court order, and the search for Bryson began. According to the Harrison County coroner, sadly, July 2nd, 2024 was also the day that Lauren was murdered, just 9 days after Bryson had been released from jail. On July 3rd, when Lauren still couldn't be found, police used the OnStar in Lauren's car to track her location. And this was after her father literally begged them. At 3 p.m., they arrived to Wolf River Cemetery, which is located in Harrison County. Upon arriving at the scene, officers not only saw Lauren's car, but they also saw a man that fit Bryson's description run from her car. And this began a 6-hour-long manhunt. According to Matt Harley, who is the Harrison County Sheriff, he said that they had around 50 police officers that were searching these woods for Bryson. They used drones, helicopters, and canine units to try to assist in finding him. Sheriff Haley also said that early in the search, they actually realized that Bryson still had his phone on him. So they decided that they would pretend to be one of Bryson's friends and send him a text. And it worked. They were able to lure him out of hiding, and he was caught. And I gotta hand it to him. That was a pretty smart tactic. By using it, they were able to trick Bryson, and he was pretty much tackled by investigators as soon as he came out. Like, watch this video. They straight up look like a bunch of big football dudes running around. Sadly, in Lauren's car, they found her body. She was in the back of the car, and she was wrapped in trash bags and sheets. She had been badly beaten to death. Her father actually arrived on scene, and he had to help the medical examiner carry her body from the car. I can't imagine that.
Well, I called her. I didn't get a call, so I texted her, and I got a text back. It didn't really look like her the way she talks.
Early Tuesday morning, Lance received a notification that Lauren's Life 360 tracker was turned off. And then his other daughter, who was living with Lauren, said she wasn't there, and the security camera on their front door was destroyed. That's when Hattiesburg police were called to report Lauren missing. But Lance said that police waited until Wednesday to check the location of Lauren's car using OnStar. And when detectives called Lance to tell him,
I knew she was dead. When we got there, her car was up like in the middle of the cemetery. She was in the back of the car wrapped up in a bunch of sheets and trash bags. And she was basically beaten to death. Her face was smashed in, her head was smashed in. She was just brutally beaten to the point she couldn't see out of either eye when she finally died. I helped the coroner lift her body out of the car. It was just mutilated.
Lance said he can't believe Rivers was let out of jail with a reduced bond and no monitoring system.
I think the criminal justice system in Nashville, Tennessee failed my daughter and our family. The world shouldn't work this way. She had dreams and hopes that were larger than life. And the best quality of about her was that she had a really big heart and to do anything for anyone to help them out. Everything she did, everything she touched turned to gold, except for this guy.
Police believe that after killing Lauren, Bryson cleaned up her car and attempted to destroy any evidence. They believe that although she was found in Harrison County, she was potentially killed in Forest County. Bryson was charged with first-degree murder, 1 count of grand larceny, and 1 count of tampering with evidence. He received no bond this time for his first-degree murder charge, so Mama's little boy gets to stay in timeout now. Hopefully forever.
In a Forest County courtroom Friday, investigators revealed new details about the murder of Lauren Johanson in July. Her ex-boyfriend, Bryson Rivers, is accused of beating her to death. Forest County Sheriff's Office investigator Lieutenant David Benoit laid out the evidence deputies have against Rivers. Now we're going to rewind back to the night investigators say it all went down. Lieutenant Benoit says it starts late at night on July 1st. He says Rivers tried to call and text Johansen more than 120 times. but she didn't respond. Lieutenant Benoit says phone records indicate a friend dropped Rivers off in the area around Johansen's house. The prosecution says that Rivers was seen on surveillance footage walking down this road in the direction of Johansen's home. He stayed for some time, but was later seen backing out of her driveway and leaving in her car. Now, investigators say Johansen was never seen getting into the car, nor was Rivers ever spotted loading anything into it. Within 10 minutes of Rivers leaving the home, officers say he returned to pick up an item before taking off again. During their investigation, deputies discovered that 5 of the 11 surveillance cameras at Johansen's home were missing. Officers are trying to get access to any cloud recordings through subpoenas. Investigators say Rivers was seen on security video driving through downtown Hattiesburg around 6 in the morning. Based on the video, Rivers was the only person in the car. Investigators say that Rivers' next move was driving through here at Chain Park in Hattiesburg without stopping, and ended up here at Petal River Park, where law enforcement say security cameras showed he stayed for 32 minutes. He was then seen driving out of here at a high rate of speed. This would eventually be the location that Harrison County Sheriff's deputies say cadaver dogs hit on 2 different areas. Using Rivers' ankle monitor, deputies were able to compare his movements with the surveillance video. Investigators tell us they were able to use that tracking device to determine that Rivers then went back down to the coast. Harrison County deputies found Rivers in a cemetery in the driver's seat of Johansen's car. Johansen's body was found in the back of the car. The Harrison County coroner estimated that Johansen was found 30 to 35 hours after she was killed, putting her in Forest County at the time of her death. While Rivers was on the run, Harrison County deputies say they were able to record a phone call of Rivers confessing to his brother, saying, quote, "I killed the..." Despite the graphic testimony, Lauren Johansen's father remained in the courtroom Friday, hoping for justice in his daughter's death.
Of course, he's been caught red-handed, so the answer is we know he did the crime, and it's time to do the time.
Okay, so are you still with me? Absolutely horrible, horribly tragic story to hear. And, when I first heard it, I immediately wanted to know, who's going to be held responsible for all of these failures that were made. So, of course, I started doing some research, and these are some of the things that I came up with. Let's start out with the reduction of the bond that the judge decided upon. Can the judge be held liable because of this decision? No, not really. Legally, judges have what's called judicial immunity, which means that no, they can't be held liable for any decision that they make while in office. So unfortunately, although in my opinion, it was an incredibly bad decision, the chances of a judge actually getting, facing any repercussions for this decision is slim to none, meaning it's not going to happen. Well, what about the clerk of courts? The one that made that mistake of not including that vital second page of information, which had all the stipulations on it. Are they going to have any consequences for this mistake? Well, the Davidson County Chief Deputy Clerk said that they're working with the IT department to add some kind of pop-up notification to their system. Something that would make people be required to be like, check, check, check. Did I send everything correctly? Is all the attachments good to go before I hit send? These people would be required to hit the check buttons before hitting send, as a verification. And finally, the bail bond company. According to Brookes from Brookes Bails Bonds, her agent didn't read the first page of the document before signing it. Like, what? I mean, at least she's honest, but what a crappy excuse. And she's also refused to do any type of interviews to explain her side of the story. Both bail bonds companies are being, taken to court by the judge, who is demanding receipts and documentation, emails, basically just an explanation of what went wrong. They could face suspension or even lose the ability to issue bonds entirely in Davidson County. So as a victim, what can you really do to protect yourself? Restraining orders are only good if the person listens to them, But according to former FBI agent Jennifer Coffendorfer, she said restraining orders are still important to have.
I mean, unfortunately, we're seeing this across the country in these types of domestic violence cases where individuals are being let out only to hurt and harm their victims.
Yeah. Jennifer, do you have a message to that family tonight? I mean, just in an incredible amount of pain, feeling like they saw this coming and they tried to stop it.
I do have a message. My message would be, first of all, I am so sorry, so very sorry for your loss. But secondarily, I would say that I hope that they really push for change and do everything they can to take this platform that they now have and try to push for judges to not allow these sorts of bond reductions. Hopefully, they can have a new law in place that would maybe be called her law. Where this wouldn't be allowed in the future, Natasha.
And Jennifer, if other women or men find themselves in a toxic relationship, if they are being stalked, if threats have been made towards them, everyone says to get a restraining order. In so many cases, that is not enough. I know we have spoken about cases where it actually provokes the individual as well. Is there anything someone can do to protect themselves truly if they feel their lives are in danger?
Well, restraining orders are important, so that way, if they're found lurking around your house, that they could be put into custody with that restraining order. But beyond that, changing everything. It's so sad that these victims have to do this, but their emails, where they live, they need to live around somebody. They need to have ring cameras. They need to have alarms. They need to be on the lookout. Unfortunately, that's the way this situation is when you have somebody that domestically, violently wants to attack and even kill you.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, this suspect was already in jail for aggressive behavior towards this specific victim. I know you say the judge should not have lowered this bond. He should not have been let out. Do you have any indication as to the rationale behind that, why he was let out at all?
You know, I did a lot of research and I couldn't find the rationale. There is no good rationale for lowering such a bond, in my opinion.
All right. So what do you guys think? If you want my opinion, I think, without knowing much about it, I think judicial immunity is crap. You know, just like in life, when you make a mistake, you face the consequences. So why can't it be the same for judges? And as for the clerk of court goes, maybe they weren't trained properly. I don't know. I definitely think somebody needs to be held liable for those documents not being sent properly, whether it's the clerk of court or their manager. Someone should be fired, in my opinion. That's just too big of a mistake to make. And don't even get me started on the bondsman. I hope that if the judge can prove that they didn't follow the rules that, you know, they agreed upon with the judge, that they are held criminally liable for the things that, you know, for the mistakes that they made. Like, this just isn't a mistake that you can pick up and act like nothing happened afterwards. I pray that Lauren's family gets justice, and I pray that rules, procedures, laws are put into place because of this to prevent this from ever happening to another family. I feel so bad for everything that they had to go through. So, with that said, it is getting late here in Colorado. I am hot and I'm tired, and I have to work in a couple hours. So, I am going to go to bed, and I will catch you in the next video, hopefully. If you're not already subscribed and you like this video, please hit that subscribe button. It's a free way to help your girl out, and it's greatly appreciated. All right, guys, until next time, stay safe and stay focused. Bye.